I gotta say, I hate it when it feels like there are rules that I'm supposed to follow. And like when you're told not to be too loud or be too bossy or that you're putting yourself first makes you selfish. But these are just quiet little ways that society is trying to keep us small. And I don't know about you, but I'm so done playing that game. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan. I built this space to empower women to build and live their dream lives without the guilt and expectations of society by having one honest conversation at a time. And today, we are going to be talking about those unspoken rules that you might have been living under, not realizing that it's just another way to try and guilt and control you into being someone that doesn't align with you or your goals. And speaking of aligning your goals, for a little plug right here, have you ever heard of my new community group? Well, I just started it. It's called Soft Hustle Society. It's a safe space for women who are ready to feel supported by like-minded creators, dreamers, and entrepreneurs. If you haven't had the chance to check it out, then go ahead and do so by following the link down below. Or you can reach out to me directly and I'll be sure to share it with you because I'm super friendly, I'm super nice, I'm super helpful. So don't be shy. This group is meant to support your dreams and not tear you down. If you have a dream and you want help, let someone be there to help you. Now, moving back to today's conversation, let's start unpacking some unspoken rules that tell us to shrink, sacrifice, and stay quiet. Because on this channel, it's all about loud women with big dreams, something that society, honestly, tends to not be the biggest fan of. And let's be honest here, it's so much more fun to piss people off than diminishing yourself. So let's go ahead and get into it. To kick things off, we have to know where these rules are coming from. So first, I want to do a little memory lane moment with you. When you hear the following words, I want you to think of when you first heard them. Maybe jot it down, maybe just tuck it away for later. The first, you shouldn't be assertive or you'll be labeled as difficult. You should always be available, otherwise you're not a good friend or a good partner. You have to put your family's needs first. You have to put your partner's needs first. These are the 4 rules that we're actually going to use for this conversation today. But I really want you to think about how these 4 unspoken rules pop up for you in your everyday life. Maybe you feel guilty because instead of cooking a full meal at home, you got takeout. Maybe you feel ashamed that you put your own needs above your partner's because you needed a moment to rest. Maybe you believe some of your coworkers don't like you because you're too bossy. Whatever the thoughts might be, I want you to press on them and I want you to ask for each one. Why is that so wrong? Why is it so wrong that you are assertive? Why is it so wrong that you are not always available? We are taught these rules early in life. They come from cultural expectations, societal values, and learned behaviors that are passed on by parents, grandparents, caretakers, basically anyone that you were interacting with as a young child. These rules, they are not facts. They're opinions. Someone taught you this, and you get to choose if you still want to believe them. You get to ask yourself, who benefits from me staying small? And what do I gain when I break those rules? If you want to pause for a minute, jot down your thoughts specifically around which rule kind of hits you hardest and what would it be like if you didn't believe it. Go ahead, pause it for a moment, and then come back. Because after that, we're going to deconstruct the hell out of some of these rules so that you can feel more empowered to be fully you without even a little bit of guilt. So let's dive into it. Rule number 1. Women shouldn't be too assertive or you'll be labeled as difficult. Fun fact, I've been labeled as aggressive, assertive, bossy, and difficult more times than I can count. Some of that comes from the bias of being a Black woman, and some of it is simply just being a woman, period. When a woman raises her voice, she's yelling or too emotional. But I've sat in boardrooms where men were literally cursing, pounding on the table, standing and yelling to be heard, demanding that they be heard because they weren't getting their way, and no one called them aggressive or too emotional. They were executives fighting for what they believe in. So what's the difference? Why is it powerful for a man to speak up, but when a woman asks for a raise, demands a promotion, or just shows up for herself confidently, she's labeled as aggressive, bossy, or difficult? I remember this one time I got called aggressive for standing up for myself and my coworkers. A coworker wasn't pulling her weight, so 2 of us had to spend pretty much all day figuring out what the problem was and fixing it. And that went into Friday night. No one thanked us. It was brushed off as us just doing our jobs. And so later when we had our team meeting, she asked, we were like going through it, and I think she might have had some sense to pick on that there was some tension, that there was an issue. So at the end of the meeting, she asked, so what seems to be the problem? And no one said anything for a moment. I didn't raise my voice, to be so clear. I just told her directly that I believed that she was the problem. Could I have used a little more tact? Probably. Sure. Maybe. But I wasn't aggressive. I was honest. I was direct. And yet this is what happens when women are honest and direct, even with each other sometimes. Honesty gets women labeled as difficult. If I'd been a man giving her feedback, do you really think I would have been called aggressive? No, because there's a double standard. And my story, unfortunately, is not special. Women everywhere stand up for themselves at work and get branded with labels that hold them back. And then we hear about women getting passed over for promotions because they're too bossy or too much or too difficult or too emotional. And the rest of us, we end up shrinking because we don't want those stories attached to ours. We don't want to be a part of that. We don't want to be attached to that person. That's how this rule stays alive. It's a double standard. Sure, 100%. It sucks. It blows. It's terrible that this is what's happening. Men in the workplace get praised for being killers or big dogs, while women in leadership are told to be sensitive, put a smile on their face, and that they should smile more. We're told to speak up, but when we do, we're punished for it. Part of this comes down to, I will say, unconscious bias. We can't just blame one sole person or one sole group. We're all swimming in the same water here, people. But it is clear to understand that there are double standards. When a woman shares her accomplishments, she's braggy. A man does the same thing, he's confident, he's ambitious. When a woman's direct, she's mean. When a man is direct, he's a strong leader. So what do we do with this unspoken rule? How do we challenge it? How do we find a way to navigate this unspoken rule in a way that doesn't make us want to pull our hair out? Well, fortunately, we chip away at it through micro steps that we can take every single day. And one of those steps is actually dealing with our own internal dialogue that we are having with ourselves, especially when we see her being ambitious. I want you to challenge what words first come up. Is it confidence? Is it ambition? Or is it she's being braggy? She's mean. She's aggressive. She's assertive. Which I will say, what's so wrong with being assertive? But that's for a different time. We have to challenge that internal dialogue that we have with ourselves. We can't just label a big corporate baddie as being a bitch when we're not doing the same to our male constituents. We can't do it. That's how we continue to have the double standard. The other side of this is using our voice strategically. And I'm not saying tone yourself down. And hey, I get it. Real quick, I understand that it can be scary to be a woman right now. It can be scary to be a queer person. It can be scary to basically be anyone that is not a white, straight man. But we have to keep hoping. We have to keep moving in this direction, because otherwise we're allowing the double standard to continue, and we're allowing ourselves to be treated in a way that doesn't align with hope, that doesn't align with happiness, that doesn't align with joy. And unfortunately, that burden does become upon us. And it does eventually trickle out into other people when we start having these conversations. When you correct your coworker, when you say, oh, she's so bitchy. Well, why is she bitchy? Oh, well, she just is always demanding this. Or is she demanding it? Or is she being confident? Is she asking you to provide good work? Is she demanding that you be a better employee? Is that being bitchy? No, it's not. It's her being a leader. And so we have to see how it kind of goes hand in hand when we are doing that internal work, when we are then using our voice strategically and helping to not perpetuate this double standard. We can start to crumble this unspoken rule. We have to find people who are going to champion our voices, and we have to stay away from the people who want to silence it. Being labeled as too much is often it's just a sign that you're pushing someone out of their comfort zone. And honestly, real growth, as we know, it's not going to happen inside this little comfortable bubble. It's going to happen outside of it. So make people uncomfortable. Use your voice strategically. Push back when you hear someone saying, oh, she's aggressive. Why? Why is she aggressive? Force them to look into the mirror and question their own internal dialogue. Because we have to be the ones to challenge these old stories. We have to be the ones to rip up the rules that keep us in these tight little boxes where we can't stretch and be ourselves. And this actually transcends into our other unspoken rules that we're going to be talking about, is that a lot of the times these unspoken rules are meant to keep us in those little boxes. So I want you to remember that as we go into rule number 2. Rule number 2, always be available or you're not a good friend. And let's be real, this one hits hard for so many of us. How many times have you said yes when your body was like, no, no, girl, we need to stay home? How many times have you dropped everything for someone else, even when you were running on E? We're taught early on, especially as women, that a good friend is always there, always available, always on call. It doesn't matter if you're exhausted, overwhelmed, or just need a minute to yourself, because God forbid you say, hey, I can't talk right now, or I need this weekend to recharge. Because suddenly you're selfish, you're flaky, or you're a bad friend. I'll be honest. I've been that friend, the one who answered every text right away, showed up for everyone else's crisis, big or small, gave my time, my energy, my heart, even when I didn't have enough for myself. And guess what? That doesn't make you a good friend to be that person. That makes you a people pleaser with no boundaries. And I say that actually with love, tough love, because I've been there. But here's the thing. It takes good people to help you challenge this role. And I'll never forget the first time that this was challenged for me really in a healthy way. My bestie and I, Allison, we were just at the beginning of our friendship. We had just, I think, switched from like, oh, that's my coworker friend to that's my girl. That's the one I hang out with outside of work and talk shit about you people with. And this was early in our friendship. And we were still coworkers though at the time. We were both executive assistants and she needed to take a day off of work and she asked me to cover it. But she didn't realize that I had also taken the same day off and I really needed that day. We both were like depleted. We were both going through shit in our personal life and we just needed a day to like and get our shit together in our personal lives. And I remember being so anxious at the time because I was like going through a period where I didn't have as many friends as I used to because I had either cut some people off because I was going through my own healing journey and knew that these people weren't going to be there to support me. This, that, and the other thing was going through separation. All of the things were going on at once. And so it was a very heightened state when it came to new friends and old friendships. So I remember feeling very anxious that I had told her no, because I was just recently starting to do this again, or do this more, I should say. And I was convinced that she was going to be mad at me or that she wouldn't want to be friends anymore, that she said I was going to be a bad friend. And that old, like, good friend is always available voice, it was screaming so loudly in my head. So I did something that was very brave. I brought it up to her instead of spiraling. And I'll never forget how she just kind of like, she didn't like laugh it off, but she kind of just was like, no, I didn't even think of it as a big deal. Like, take your day off. They'll be fine. They're executives. They can function for one day without us. And I believed her. Not only because I knew that she meant it, but because even like that next day, we were texting each other back and forth, supportive messages to get through our days. And we both were able to take the day of rest that we both needed. And what that moment taught me was that the right people won't punish you for protecting your peace. They're not going to twist your nose into rejection. They want you to be well, not just a convenience. And here's what's so wild and so unfortunate about the world is that there are going to be people that benefit from you believing that this unspoken rule is true. If you're always available, they never have to hold themselves accountable. They don't have to grow. They can keep leaning on you while you keep shrinking your own life to fit theirs. So let's flip it. What if a good friend isn't someone who's always available, but someone who knows when to step in and when to step back for themselves? Someone who respects their boundaries because they want you to be a whole person, not depleted. Real friends understand your life, your rest, your joy. Those matter too. You're not here to be on call for the world 24/7. You're not the fixer. You're not the emotional dump truck. You're a human being who deserves her own time. And I know that guilt will still bubble up when you say no. I get it. You think, oh, will they think I don't care? Will they stop calling me? I get it. That's a real fear. But if your no makes someone pull away, maybe that friendship was never really about you in the first place. A good friend doesn't demand your constant availability, they appreciate your capacity. And they don't punish you for protecting your peace. So here's your challenge for this rule. Next time you feel that tug to say yes when you really mean to say no, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what do I need right now? Do I have capacity to show up for someone else in a good and healthy way? And then say it. I love you, but I can't today. That's not a bad friend. That's a boundary setting baddie who knows her worth. And the right people, the Allisons of your life, they're going to love you for it. And this actually leads us into rule number 3, the one that says you should always put your partner's needs first. And quick reality check. Quick reality check. I want to know why so many of us. Here, let me get my little bitchy coffee in my little glass jar. Why are so many of us rewriting our whole life stories for a man who wouldn't even read the back cover of the book? The idea that you should always put your partner's needs first before your own, this is probably my most hated unspoken rule. I hate it because it's so unhealthy. So many of us are out here acting like our partners, personal assistants, life coaches, chefs, therapists, hype squad, and emotional support animals, and it's doing that all rolled into one, while our own needs gather dust in the corner. Look, I get it. We've been taught that a good partner sacrifices, but that has to be mutual. We have to understand that real love does not mean being selfless. It does not mean that you're bending over backwards. Too many of us are doing full on backflips for people who can't even do the bare minimum for us. And here's the thing, healthy relationships, whether that's friendship, family, love, whoever, healthy relationships aren't built on one person constantly shrinking themselves for the other. Love should not feel like a group project where you do all the work and they still get an A. Your partner is not a helpless child. They are not a baby bird that you have to feed. And your needs don't magically stop existing just because you're in a relationship. If anything, that's when they deserve to be honored more. And before you start spiraling, no. Prioritizing yourself doesn't mean you don't care or love your partner. It means you're not outsourcing your entire identity to someone else's happiness. A partnership is supposed to be two whole people, not one half trying to fill up the other person's empty cup 24/7. And I get it. There are times where you do have to be the person that's filling up your partner's cup sometimes. Sometimes when they get sick, when they get injured, when they're going through something, sometimes you do have to be the person that's putting on a little bit more of the burdens or the household chores or things like that. But the keywords here are 24/7. When you are that person for too long, when you are not getting some mutual exchange, that's when it's not real love anymore. That's when you are falling into this unspoken rule that you have to sacrifice for your partner, that you have to be everything for them, that you have to put them first. So here's your check-in. When was the last time you asked yourself what you needed instead of guessing what they needed? When was the last time you set a boundary with your partner and actually kept it? If you've ever felt guilty for putting yourself first, especially in your romantic relationships, this is your permission slip. It is not selfish. It is necessary. You deserve to be your own priority, even in love. Because here's the honest truth. The right partner is not going to punish you for that. The right partner wants you to be a whole person, not this hollowed out husk. They don't want you trying to please them 24/7 all the time. So maybe it's time to stop the overfunctioning. Maybe it's time to stop treating your relationship like a second job that you don't even get paid for. Love can be soft and mutual. and it's allowed to go both ways. And this leads me to rule number 4 about love going both ways. Rule number 4, always put your family's needs first. This is probably the biggest rule because family is a huge F word. This one is from all my eldest daughters, my generational curse breakers, my people pleasers who keep getting pulled back into the same cycle because family is family. How many of us have been told that family comes before everything? That you owe it to your parents, your siblings, your cousins, your aunties, your grown-ass uncle who never did a thing for you, but still expect you to show up every time. Here's where my pushback comes to them. You were a child. When someone says, oh, they cared for you, they loved you, they housed you, they clothed you, you mean like a parent should? You mean like a caretaker should for a child? I didn't realize that I was collecting a debt every single time they cleaned, housed, and fed me. And listen, I'm not saying don't care about your family. I'm not saying cut your family members off. I'm saying your family doesn't get to dictate your life just because they're your family. Your family does not own you. They do not own your time, your money, your energy, or your boundaries. And yet so many of us have been guilted into believing that if you don't drop everything for them, you're ungrateful, you're selfish. But quick question. When was the last time they dropped everything for you? When was the last time you dropped everything for yourself? And here's the real tea. Sometimes putting family first just means putting old expectations first. It means replaying old dynamics where you stay small, you stay the peacemaker, you stay the fixer, even when it costs you everything. And a lot of us, we stay stuck because that's just how it's always been. But what if it wasn't? What if you weren't the person that organized the Mother's Day card? What if you weren't the one that made sure Daddy Dearest had his newest thing for Father's Day? What if you weren't the one that answered the call the first time? What if you did send them to voicemail? When you say, well, that's just how it's always been, that's exactly what you're here to break. And I know this is tricky. Family can be complicated. Sometimes they really do need you. But the truth is, you are not your family's emotional safety net. You are not the family's free therapist. You are not the designated problem solver. You are not the holiday peacekeeper or the one who holds it all together while losing yourself in the process. You are allowed to choose yourself even when it's uncomfortable. You're allowed to say, I can't do that, or I need to focus on me right now, or no, I can't help with that. The right people, yes, even family, they're going to get mad at first, but they will adjust. And if they don't, that's their work to do, not yours. And this is when we start getting into cutting a family member off or family members off. I have gone through this with my stepfather figure. I did end up cutting him off because it was very clear every time I set a boundary, every time I tried to show up and be a different person, be the better daughter, be the better whatever, there was so much disrespect. There was so much lack of trying and caring on their part. And it felt like I was always the one that was putting in the work into the relationship, and they just got to benefit from me bending over backwards for them. And that's why I ended up cutting them off, is that I realized I needed to set the hard boundary so that I could continue to heal and thrive in my life without feeling this guilty feeling that I wasn't enough for this other person. And I didn't need their shadow hanging over my healing journey or their shame or whatever was going on with them, because that's their work to do. And by putting up that boundary, what that allows that other person to do is hopefully check in with themselves to realize why somebody cut them off, to give them the chance to go look in the mirror and have the internal dialogue with themselves and figure out where they need to make a change. That's not on me. It's not on me to be the operator of their healing journey. And that's also not on you when it comes to your family members. So here's your gut check for this one, or challenge. Where are you still carrying family obligations that were never really yours to carry? Where are you saying yes out of guilt instead of love? Because that is truly the biggest issue with all of this, is we're not really loving our family members by constantly being there for them. What ends up happening is we build up this resentment and this guilt, and that actually ends up overpowering all of the love that we once had for them. So here's what I want you to think about, to remember. You don't need permission to break these unspoken rules that keep you small. But if you do, here's your permission slip. Here it is. Permission granted. Start being too much. Start saying no without the 5-paragraph apology. Start taking up space like it's your goddamn birthright, because it is. And if you ever need a reminder that you're not alone in this, come find me and I'll remind you why you deserve good things, why you deserve the promotion, why you deserve to take time for yourself, why you deserve to feel peaceful without guilt. And if you know someone who also needs to hear this, please share this episode with them, because we need to, as a collective group, especially as women, to join together, to bond, so that we can start to collectively, as a society, break these unspoken rules that are created to keep us smaller and keep us in our bubbles. And if you are still looking further for more support while you're doing this, while you're breaking these unspoken rules, join us in Soft Hustle Society. We're not here to tear you down for dreaming bigger. We're here to hype you up while you do it. Your dream life doesn't happen by following these invisible rules that were never meant for you anyway. So go and build your life way, loudly, unapologetically, and with the people who are going to clap when you win. Now go be too much, and I'll see you next week. Kisses!